All right, let's continue our discussion of the interior angles of polygons. We just came up with this formula. Turns out that we can find the measure of the sum of the interior angles of any polygon by simply subtracting 2 from the number of sides and then multiplying that by 180 degrees. All right, so then I might be asked this question. What if I'm asked this question? We'll go back over here. Well, what is the sum of the interior angles of a nonagon? Okay, remember from our notes that a nonagon has 9 sides. All right, and so we can use our formula that we have the number of sides minus 2 times 180 degrees is going to give us the sum. All right, so I have 9 minus 2 times 180, and that's going to give us 7 times 180, and that's easy. We can do 7 times 100, that's 700, and then 7 times 80, that's 560, and so the sum of the interior angles of a nonagon is always going to be 1,260 degrees. We can take this even one step further. What if I'm being asked to find the measure of an interior angle in a regular, this is a different question, pentagon? This time, I'm not being asked to figure out the sum. In my first example over here, I was asked to figure out the sum. Now I'm being asked to figure out the measure of an interior angle in a regular pentagon. Well, let's think about what we know when we hear regular pentagon. We know that a pentagon has 5 sides. If it has 5 sides, it has 5 angles. And if it's regular, it means that each of these angles, they all have the same measure. So that's an important piece for us. The first thing we're still going to have to figure out is, well, what on earth is the sum of all 5 angles? What is the sum of all 5 angles? And once we figure that out, well, if we just divide that by 5, that's going to give you the measure of each angle. That makes sense. Okay, so let's use our formula. Side minus 2 times 180, and what we're talking about is a pentagon. So 5 minus 2 times 180, that's 3 times 180, and that's 300 plus 240. So what we're looking at is 540. 540 is the sum of all 5 angles. There are 5 angles in a pentagon. So if it's a regular pentagon, all we have to do is 540 divided by 5, and that will tell us that each of the angles inside a regular pentagon measures to 108 degrees. Super cool. This will get even a little bit trickier. What if I'm now given something in a little bit reverse order? What if I'm told that the sum of the interior angles equals 720 degrees, and now I'm being asked to find the number of sides? Same formula. We can use the same formula to figure this thing out and a little bit of algebra. All right, so what we know is that the sum of the interior angles is equal to the side minus 2. If we multiply that by 180, that's going to give us the sum of the angles. Okay, so let's plug in what we have. We've been given 720 degrees. That's going to be very helpful for us. We don't know the side, so I'm going to have to keep a variable in there. Side minus 2 times 180, and this time we know that it's equal to 720. So now we're just going to simplify this expression, but it's really important that you realize we have the distributive property to deal with. I have 180 times s minus 180 times 2 is equal to 720. You have to make sure you use the distributive property when you're finding the number of sides in this formula. So I have 180s minus 360 is equal to 720. Now I can just add the 360 to both sides. That's fantastic. And I get 180s equals 1080. And if I divide this side by 180 and I divide this side by 180, it turns out that 1080 divided by 180, if you use your calculator, you're going to get 6. So the sides equal 6, so that means that this unknown is a hexagon.